can we really quickly go around and I literally just want you to tell me your name and your first name, and if you're an artist or if you're affiliated with an organization or a non-profit or whatever, just tell me, but just really, really quickly, so we've got a few of you. Just wait, why don't we start with you, Linda?
Linda, and I'm the secretary for the Alturas Arts Center.
So Linda, you're on the board of directors for the Arts Center. Fabulous.
I'm Barbie and in the Arts Center and then the pastel on the board.
I'm Landon and I'm here to do some footage for everybody.
Renee, I am an artist, acrylic, mixed media, etc. Formerly the chair of the Art Center and a teacher.
Fantastic, thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Ken. I'm past director of the Arts Council for 35 years. I'm a wildlife artist, graphic designer. I'm also on the board of the Arts Council and Upstate Community Theater.
We're so grateful to have Michelle as executive
Yeah.
director of
Very
the Arts Council. It's wonderful that you're with us, Michelle.
I'm Norma, a retired teacher in the arts.
Thank you so much, Norma.
And an artist.
Let me say, I'm
My name's Nick, and I have an artist and have a little gallery in the studio that I opened up in Cedarville this past year. Studio
5280. Right, is that the name?
540, Studio 540.
Student 5. How did I get that? It's the fact that she tried, whether it's an art, she tried. I'm Nikki Walter, and I'm representing the private school as a member of the school board. Fantastic, you're in such trouble now that you've shown up.
Hi, my name is Sadie, and I am the president of the Modoc County Arts Theater. I'm the secretary for Alturas Community Theater. I am the Modoc representative for. And I am a school board representative for county school board, and I am going to apologize right now. I have to go direct the play in about 15 minutes. You are not boring me.
Oh my God. I'm just gonna like speed through this, come on.
I'm Marcy. I work for Shasta View Academy Charter School. I'm a teacher.
Fantastic.
I'm Eleanor. I work for the school district. I do readers theater and various things like that. I'm involved with empath, I'm involved with music.
Wonderful, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm in the school. I am a speech therapist. What I am not said, and I enjoy art.
Duh.
My name is Grant. I'm currently working at Modoc County, but soon we doing public health and more of an umbrella. And been in education before that, 22 years. The last 4 years, 2 years, we've been working on rehabilitation, community members, suffering.
That is fabulous work. Thank you for coming.
I'm Chris. I'm an elementary school music teacher.
That's
Fabulous work. And the best you sing.
Yes.
Of course you do.
Yes. I'm Dan. I'm the secretary for Modoc Performing Arts Theater and also a teacher at Shasta Academy, and I work for Davidson Foundation.
Dan and I met about a month ago, wasn't it? In New England. We were there, we both flew to Boston from California without knowing it and ended up at the same conference, sitting on different panels talking about arts.
My name's Coulter. I'm an artist and involved with KDUP radio station.
So are you here spying on us? Are you secretly recording us? Please say yes.
Hi, I'm Larry. I'm a retired museum person, and I'm currently curating shows at Studio 540 Nick's Place, and also volunteering at the KDUP radio station in Surprise Valley.
We are so honored to be here. I actually just texted a friend of mine who comes every year to Surprise Valley as part of the writers' conference. And in fact, each year down in Nevada City, when we have our Sierra Poetry Festival, we're simultaneously promoting Surprise Valley. So
Did everyone get this?
what would be really great is if those of you who are on Zoom could, because we can all hear you, there's a fabulous creature in the room sitting on the table called Mr. Owl, who is recording, and we can hear you. So if you could call upon people to introduce themselves from Zoom. Thanks so much, Jen.
Go ahead, Tanja.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tanya Ramming. I am an artist wannabe, and I'm representing Fort Bidwell because I see my fellow Surprise Valley folks, Larry and Coulter and Nick. Hi, thank you for being there for our people. And I work for Advancing Modoc. We seek to grow, train, and retain people in our county. And I find that the arts are the most joyful way to spread awareness and really retain young people when we can do projects involved with art that improve our community. So I'm just a big fan, and I want to bring more of the arts out here to Fort Bidwell and Surprise Valley.
I love it, and we want you to too. How many others do we have with us today?
So now we can have Brian introduce himself, and then after him, Jonathan could introduce himself.
And then we do it
Got it.
really quickly. Brian.
Cool.
Lovely.
Hi, guys. I'm Brian Taylor, partnering with Modoc County Arts Council this year to bring the community concert series to Fort Bidwell, and we're going to culminate in Alturas at the Niles Theater this coming November 17th with the Uptown Brass. So we're looking forward to that. Hope you all can make it to that. Passionate about the arts, about music, and just really stoked about the future of arts and music in Surprise Valley, Modoc County, and beyond. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Brian. And then I believe it's Thomas, isn't it?
Jonathan.
Jonathan.
Yes, Jonathan, you can introduce yourself.
Hey there. Thank you for that. My name is Jonathan Bannister. I am a local business owner in Alturas. I own Body Waste Estate Spa, and I'm also a local photographer in the area. So I really like landscape and astrophotography, and I just saw this meeting and I wanted to join and learn more about it.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. So we have an incredible mix of people in the room. We have teachers, we have social service professionals, we have artists in many disciplines, which is wonderful because that's what we wanted. A big special thank you to Michelle and to Dan for pulling out all the stops and making sure that those of you in the room heard about this. So thank you. And this is just the beginning. So we usually begin with a brief land acknowledgement. Would anyone like to acknowledge the tribal peoples of this place where we are this evening? Dan, maybe you'd like to, Michelle?
The ancestral lands of the action movement. And I'm going to say it right, because I've been saying that for many years. I just hope I'm saying it right.
Well, you would know better than I. And I think you have Modoc and Northern Plains
Would be in the Surprise Valley.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Of course, I don't think I did.
Hey, Eliza, would you be closer maybe a little, just so the owl's not wanting to capture you that far?
Absolutely. Yeah. We can do that. That's no problem at all. So we are here to introduce literally a brand new California Arts Council program called the California Creative Corps. And this is the result of about close to $60 million worth in workforce development and recovery, economic recovery funds that the governor deemed necessary to give to the California Arts Council to re-grant across California in every region in representing California's diverse populations. So this was an enormous task because, of course, the California Arts Council's budget has grown in recent years. And all the money is usually tied up in very specific grant programs, but it very, very rarely trickles down to artists directly. So this program aims to actually put artists to work and pay them directly, either directly or through social service organizations, arts organizations, collaborations between the two. But the key thing is that artists are put to work to shed light on issues that are critical to California communities, and in this case, Modoc. So tonight we are going to speak about a new kind of evaluation tool which the state is using, through which we'll know in the long term whether we've been successful. And much of what we do in the arts, much of the creative process is trial and error, but we want to have fun with you. And so the idea is that we're going to be increasing public awareness related to water, energy conservation, climate mitigation, emergency preparedness, relief, recovery, and then civic engagement, including election participation, for example. That seems so specific, doesn't it? And yet it's an indicator of health. I sort of threw that one in there in this first slide because it just gets one thinking. They've determined the Healthy Places Index, which is this extraordinary map we're going to be looking at. One of the indicators of health is the degree to which an individual citizen participates and feels that they have a voice. And then public health awareness. We've just come through this massive pandemic, which has lasted, 2.5 years. Who knows what's around the corner? The program in many ways mirrors a program that was created in the 1930s and went into, thank you so much. I've just been rescued from sitting on my coffee. Well, the Works Progress Administration, otherwise known as the WPA. So some of the most, famous artists that we know of today from the 20th century, like Jackson Pollock, for example, cut his teeth through the WPA, through doing incredible works with government, federal agencies to improve the conditions under which society might thrive again following the Great Recession. So here we are after the Great Pandemic, and thinking, come on, let's put artists to work. We know how to do this. So here's a map of California. It's divided up into 8 regions under the California Creative Corps. You can see that some of the regions, perhaps because they're most densely populated, have only, say, 2 counties in one region. That's like, look at San Diego, Los Angeles. The Central Coast region only has 5 counties. We have our work cut out for us. We're upstate California. We have the most diverse geography, converging mountain ranges, rivers confluencing. We've got high desert, low desert, coastal areas. It's extreme geography over the largest spread of land. And of course, there are many ways of looking at that map of California. The map on the left here shows the California Economic Resiliency Fund, the way they look at California. For them, it makes sense when they're thinking about economic development to tie those counties along the western seaboard, the Redwood Coastal region, and then they call the rest of what we call upstate North State. This next one is connected with watersheds, isn't it, Katrina? And then the one on the right, clearly that's how communities communicate with one another in this day and age. It's transport, isn't it? So that's how we figure out how to get from one county to another in the 21st century. So here we'll just run through. Katrina, would you like to speak to this? I'm so aware that we have someone leaving in about 5. Can we in 5 minutes? Whoever it is that's leading today.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Katrina, spin us through this.
Well, then, in spinning through, most of all, again, you saw the geography for the upstate region, so you saw the sort of scale, but it's more of like to exemplify here, although the population
that we might be representing is only 4.2% of California's population. We represent 31% of the geography of California. So, and then, of course, we sort of hit on the fact that there's 3 drainages, I mean, 3 watersheds going different directions. So there's a lot to take on. 14 inches of rain a year up here in Modoc County to 95 inches in Del Norte. So it's really just getting this range of conditions, range of needs, range of people's lives and lifestyles, and all of that captured. So thus, as we go further, you'll see that it's looking at things based on counties.
So one of the reasons that we love to show you this broader context of what we have within upstate California is to encourage you, as you think about applying for monies from this particular grant, to think beyond county lines. If that's what you want to do, think about Modoc, think about Alturas, think about Fort Briggs, think about Surprise Valley. But also, if some of you have connections that are very meaningful, that connect with some of these healthy places indicators, and mean that you work across county lines, for example, or regionally, we challenge you to think bigger. So, how on earth do we manage such an incredibly large area compared to the other regions in California? We do it through what we call, in the arts world across California, the State Local Partnership Program. So as we go forward, the Nevada County Arts Council will most likely be most effective if we work with the local arts agencies within your region. So Michelle and I, and Dan and I with Michelle, will work together to make sure that the largest number of people who could be eligible for a grant know about this opportunity and are having conversations from this night onwards in preparing to write grants. And we'll all be speaking. We're like a sort of, a system, a blood supply around the North State region. So yes, today we're introducing what the state sees as a new method of evaluation in terms of the relative health of communities. It's called the Healthy Places Index. And through this, the state wants us to identify things that are critical to your community's healing. And of course, like, notice we've said, and to get paid for it. So this is the Healthy Places Index. And make a note of this, like healthyplacesindex.org. After this, by the end of the week, so by tomorrow, essentially, we have your email addresses. So with your permission, we're going to send you the presentation from tonight so that you can refer to it. And this is basically your head start. Start thinking about things.
And if you want to write down, you can write that.
I took a picture.
Oh, fantastic. So when you look at that map of California, it's a little bit confusing. It's kind of boxy because it doesn't divide up California in the normal way that we see California often divided up. What it's showing us is the relative health of communities across California. What do you think the dark green bits are showing? Do you think they're healthy, unhealthy? What do you reckon?
I would say healthier.
Yeah. And we say that probably because they're urban, maybe they're connected to systems of resources that we don't have in rural California. So the darker the blue, the least healthy the community. And within, and it's divided up into tracts. Could you explain why the default position for the map is divided up into tracts rather than say congressional or Senate or assembly districts or counties or cities?
Most of all, they were looking for something that doesn't change much over time. The census tracts are actually primarily based on geographic features of some sort. And the way that it would change over time is the population grows quite a bit. A census tract might be divided into two, or if the population goes down quite a bit, two tracts might be merged. But other than that, it pretty much stays consistent, so you can compare over a long duration of time the changes.
So it's not a fickle, in other words, it's not a fickle, a fickle way of dividing it that could change. So yes, you looking at that, you can immediately see, yikes, Northern California, right? What can we do about that? So what are the indices? What are the markers that determine whether a community is healthy or not healthy? There are economic factors determined by one's access to education, social factors such as the degree to which folks are, able to fill out a census without feeling afraid of that, whether they're able to get to the voting room and vote, whether the transportation in their communities is good and gets them from A to B, whether they have a car, whether they can commute to a higher living somewhere else, and back again. What the neighborhood is like, what are housing conditions, whether the environment is clean, and then of course access to really good healthcare like insurance. So all these are specific to Modoc, aren't they? Or is this a general upstate?
But this one, this would have been.
Yes. But we wanted to show you that we actually put this slide in just last night because usually we speak to it, but we wanted you to see what the actual markers are. And it's absolutely fascinating. We'll look at it live in a minute using my hotspot. We'll actually go onto it and burrow down into Modoc County. So, do you want to speak to this? Come over here and talk to this. So great, Katrina.
So basically, this is showing the upstate region, and within it, these are the different tracts that are involved, the census tracts we mentioned. And using those indices you just saw before, they can have a way to come up with an overall HBI score, Healthy Places Index score. So within the tracts, the 374 tracts that are in the upstate region, the amount that have ended up in the blue, which is the dark blue, which is the 0 to 25th percentile. That means if you landed at 25th percentile, then there are you have the healthier conditions than 25% of of the other communities. I'm communicating better before, I haven't written something. Anyway, and so forth. The light blue goes to the 50th, and this green generally tends to be healthier at 50 to 75. And then if you're in the 75 to 100, then you are there are very few communities that have better conditions than you do in that indices. So the areas that are hatched, you see quite a bit of those. Those are what are called exclusion areas. And those are areas that are excluded either because of low population, less than 1,500 people per census tract, or a very high population of dormitory style living, such as we find with prisons or healthcare senior homes.
The Healthy Places Index also takes into account social demographics such as race and ethnicity. And so here we can see the overall picture for Modoc County shows that we have 1.4% Indigenous peoples or Alaskan Natives. Whether or not we trust the way the census is, was created during 2020, and again, this might change in the future, but this is a good indication of when, for example, you are writing your grant applications to us, we may well look at whether you are aware of those least represented peoples among you, whether it's through race and ethnicity, but also other cultural indicators which lead communities or individuals to feel isolated, which is a factor in health. And so, yes, would you like to speak to this one, Katrina?
A lot of details we're giving you here so that you can see. I'm just trying to remember where we are exactly. So the next one doesn't. But this one here is primarily just showing though the community here. There's now square miles. Someone asked earlier as well. The population here in Modoc County, there it was. I heard that there are 2 people per square mile here. It was that's just and something just told me there are more cows than people. So most of all, this is just summarizing some of what we looked at to understand more about Modoc before we came here, and to understand the water courses, how you're connected to other communities. It's really interesting here because you're obviously draining both into Nevada as well as into the Sacramento River, so part of 2 hydrologic basins. I did notice that that's up from this picture, so yes, so let's see. That's interesting, but sorry about that. Yeah, so more on Modoc here is an historical maps, things that we just looked at to understand. It's very beautiful learning about Modoc County. It's extra beautiful to be here.
The place where the West still lives. I'm just reading Katrina's notes. Yes, I'm just reading Katrina's notes. It's known for its turn of the century towns, ranches, and farmlands. Federal agencies own 73% of your land. Here we go. Yes. So we must have gone backwards or repeated the slide or something. And so come over here, and then we can share the thing about our people do it with life. Yeah, it'll be great. You can see.
Are you going to move this up? Is this where you want to actually go into it and look at? So one thing that I think that's going to be great here, because Liza's going to use her hotspot to show how you get on to the Healthy Places Index and pull up a particular area.
Right.
I highlighted, we're going to start with track 1 as we go on in, and if it doesn't work with a hotspot, then we have some screenshots that take you through, but I think it's so much more informative to see it actually used as you open it up. But Alturas had the lowest overall HPI score for Modoc County. So that's what we're going to move to first and sort of see what those factors are. We're going to open up some of those policy action areas to see what the scoring is. Again, we're not making any, we're just looking at the data we see here. And in some ways, if you have different experiences, that's the whole point of this nature. To inspire that you think about these conditions, what might be causing them, what may be addressed, or is it even really, is there some piece that's being missed in this? So you're going to go with a little blue.
So this is Modoc, this square here, a little bit of exclusion zone, pale blue, and then a dark blue area, so you're having trouble spots. So let's look at Alturas where we are. And you'll notice. Good job. That sounds great. So you'll see that when I clicked on that little blue dot, which is Alturas, something on the left-hand side of the screen opens up. So when you're at home and you're digging into this, or in your offices or wherever your studios, you'll be able to see this is what Alturas looks like. You are within the lowest quartile of the Healthy Places Index. And there have got to be reasons for this. So let's scroll down and see what some of those reasons are.
And I do want to highlight one thing, because this confused me. So some people that are like me that get caught up in numbers, I was like, how is it possible that Alturas has this healthy, the score of 14.0, but the county average is 10.7, if it's a conglomerate. But what that is doing is that's comparing to all of their counties, and the city one is comparing to all of the tracks. So that's why it doesn't.
Interesting. With Katrina, she's so on the ball about these things. I just say, no, Katrina, I just need to know if it's lower or higher. But I need to explain, stop. Here are the policy action areas. That's the sort of smart way of saying these are the indicators that are measuring that overall poor health score.
Hey, clean environment.
Yeah.
Unless it's summer.
It's amazing, isn't it? So these are all the things that we pointed to in the earlier slide. So I want you to find where the little black line runs through one of those markers. It's either economic or it's transportation or neighborhood, maybe healthcare access. Tell me which one you want me to pull up so we can look deeper into that just for fun.
Education.
Okay, exactly. So why is education scoring so low? Here we go. A disproportionately low number of people have the conditions that are right to receive a bachelor's education or higher. Why is this important? Or why is it impacting? And then you click on that little arrow and it goes down and tells you why it's important. It also compares that number with the rest of the state and the rest of the county. So it says, what's the connection to health? Everyone should have the opportunity to seek higher education and to go to college if they choose. A college education is essential for many higher paying careers, and it also helps people develop the cognitive skills and knowledge necessary to make healthy choices. A college education is also can also build important social and physiological skills. So this isn't about saying it's really bad because no one's going to university with insurance. It's saying these are literally factual correlations between health and education. And this is where it gets really interesting. Let's go down and look within education at high school enrollment. Actually, high school enrollment, although it could be better, is not doing too badly in Alturas. So only you would know why that is. I find it fascinating. We've been to other countries where high school enrollment is really low. And but I find that quite encouraging. Perhaps less encouraging is preschool enrollment. And it's so interesting because I was brought up in a generation where, you know, moms and dads kept their kids at home and look up. And that was a good thing. A good mother if you stay at home. But actually there are health correlations. So what does that look like? Every child should have a chance to learn, grow, and thrive. Early childhood is a crucial period for brain development, shaping nearly every aspect of one's future health and well-being. Quality preschool is important for healthy development and has been associated with lifelong educational, economic, and health benefits. So there again, this gives you so many clues. So the reason we're showing you this is because so that you know that this is how we, Modoc County Arts Council, who's been named as the administrative organization for all grants that flow out across upstate California. This is how we're going to be evaluated. The state will look at us and they'll say, how many grants did you give to folks who are either working on their own, that's through artist residencies, or they formed really great collaborations with local schools, social service organizations, departments of government, to create impact and move the needle on some of these areas, some of these important issues. So let's look at the name of what does that mean? Park access, are you within, is the average citizen within, or rather, what is the aggregate number of citizens who have access to, you know, within half a mile's walking distance in the park? So,
Of course, it's been interesting in the areas that are more rural like this, as well as some areas that can be right next to national, federal lands, national parks. So there is a determinant here about parks that is worth paying attention to, and it's not necessarily wildlife, it's getting on the trails.
exactly, it's access to those places, it's access to nature, and actually so much, pretty much all of this is about access. How do we improve access? And access being, of course, a critical ingredient to equity, as opposed to just equality where everyone is allowed the same, you know, has the same deal. But whether or not they know how to access that opportunity is the critical thing. Clean environment, yes, let's go. Most rural communities have a clean environment. We celebrate our clean environments. Healthcare access, what does it look like here in Modoc? Much better. So the number of insured adults is really low. I mean, it's just resting there between the sort of lowest, second lowest quartile, the Healthy Places Index. What can artists possibly do to sway people, to educate people, to find to access the kind of insurance they need to live healthy lives? So we challenge you to think about that. And then, of course, again, here are the numbers for Alturas. Here we see the number of Hispanic and Latino. That's, you know, quite a high ratio. Be thinking, how am I serving that's significant to a lot of how can we help? And then, of course, in most rural upstate areas, there's a high percentage of white alone Caucasian people. Was that helpful to go into? Is there anything else you'd like to look at? in Modoc. Do you want me to go along to this eastern, this western side and have a look at that? Yeah, you've got the hang. You've got the hang of it.
We, some of us, all of our Fort Bidwell's private valley folks are in the exclusion zone, and that feels really strange.
No, it's funny because when, so that's here. Yeah,
Just so.
it's infuriating, isn't it? I felt immediately, "Oh, that's such an exclusionary thing to do, to have an exclusion zone, you know what I mean?" And I'm not sure if I even agree with the idea of like, why would you exclude people who are in prison, who need help, or people who are living in facilities together, or hospitals? But I really do think it has to do with the integrity of the data collection. More to do, more than it is being exclusionary as an.
Is that something that the folks who are from that area could do kind of a little information to fill in that gap a little bit?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I visited Surprise Valley and I was like, this is an arts community that is thriving.
Well, and the other thing is always keep in mind too, it's not even the opportunity for the grant process, just because it's excluded here in terms of data, it's not excluded. But it is worth considering what those factors are and either building on or addressing and having that, as well as partnering with other places within the larger county areas where you can bring, you can be contributing to other areas that might be weaker in interest.
When I think about the Surprise Valley, and I'm so grateful because I didn't realize, I didn't know where Surprise Valley was necessarily. I just know it's somewhere around this square. I know you're sorry. So what we usually tell government officials and when we're is that where the arts thrive, so do its people. In fact, it's even a tagline of our County Arts Council, where art thrives, so do its people. And it's how we are sometimes able to secure funding for things. So when you mentioned that Surprise Valley has a thriving community, I wonder whether that also reflects maybe if it weren't excluded due to its population, would that mean that it would be a sort of more green area?
I would say,
I think so.
So then how can you put those artists to work as we know this community, work in this community? How can you put those artists to work to benefit other areas of the county? Can you go forth like Harlem spoke and create beauty and access for what you enjoy so much as Surprise Valley? So think out of the box like that as well, rather than just contain it. Perhaps teach other communities how did you get millions of people across America copy the model of Ashland just over the border in Oregon because of their incredible success in literally building a city around theatre, you know? So maybe something that Surprise Valley has can be, you know, shared elsewhere. Just an idea of what's on the road. Yeah. So should we go back to, now we've had a look at it in reality, and you can do this at home yourselves. I'll go back to the thing. The thing. We'll go back to that slide. And just we come to blue up, brilliant. And so, yes, so we've had a look at all this, which is great.
There, you didn't ask a little bit of economics, I wish. It's fun.
Yeah.
I will point out, just pointing out the employment levels, both here in track one, and I believe as you go to the next one too, but it's just looking, and that's the 2.2 percentile. That means that 97.8% of communities have better employment conditions. So
Another thing to note. Another thing to note is that even within a pale blue area, or even within a pale green area, an area that's on the way to looking more or less healthy, you might find markers or policy action areas that are dragging it down into dark blue. So when you're thinking about, so don't be put off if you see an area that's sort of pale green. If it has areas that really are in trouble, then it's fine to, you know, consider those areas when, you know, tackling issues.
and vice versa, it might be an area that doesn't drink dark blue, but it has some conditions that really need to be addressed. That was track 3, so this is a actual, should be that other track, not or it's, no, this is the like, so this is the one that surrounds all the land around, so this one as well has a very low percentile unemployment. what might that be about, you know, what's some things that happen to address that, so.
Michelle, I'll never forget, you don't have to respond to me, but I remember when we first spoke about this back in May, when I was drafting the application, or April, to the state, and I called every single executive director of every single county arts agency of the state of Harlem. And Michelle and I were burrowing down into these tracts, and we were looking at Alturas. We were looking at the category that's called social, under which census participation and voting participation is measured. And I was, and one of them, I think it was the degree to which people get out to vote. And of course, we have primary elections happening right now. And I was saying to Michelle, of course, I don't have the answer for you. You guys have the answer. You know what it is. And Michelle immediately said to me, oh my God, I know why it is. It's because it's really hard for people to access the voting booths. What we need is some incredibly beautiful wheelchair ramps that become essentially pieces of public art. That's a way to solve this issue. And I just thought, oh my God, that's amazing. Like, she immediately had the answer. She's so cool. Anyway, this is how out of the box things can be, you know? Like, create an artist residency that is on a singular mission to create wheelchair ramps so that people can get into the voting booths. So what are we looking at here? And each one of you will have a different response, you know, whether you're working for an agency or an artist alone or a group of artists or collaborative, each one of you will have a different response to how to solve these issues or shed light on them.
But this is just doing a similar thing what we just did live for you with track 2. So again, going through what's driving the lower score in track 2, which also has to make low dark blue percentile.
So when you're looking at this map for Modoc, think out of the box. Don't just think about where you live, whether it's Surprise Valley, Alturas, track 2, the dark blue bit. Think about the whole thing, if that's what makes the difference to your proposal. So some of the things that we're considering in putting together this program, the reason we're doing the listening tour is we want to hear from you on the kind of things that would make a difference. And so here are the factors we're considering when we think about how much a county or how much an area of upstate would receive. The easy thing to do from our perspective would be divide up 3.5 million into 19 counties. So you'd all get, each county would get like 130, 140,000. But it actually becomes much more interesting if you take into account more nuanced things such as the degree of density of unhealthy areas within your county or your communities. You know, in other words, those that fall within the lowest quartile of the Healthy Places Index. And then the county population, the county geographic size, its tribal and ethnic makeup, and also, you know, other things that affect the health of communities, as we've spoken about. In the Modoc County Arts Council, we recently applied for a grant to support the emergence of an LGBTQIA multi-ethnic theatre ensemble, because data is readily available that shows that community has suffered tremendously during the pandemic, partly through isolation and other factors. So that's just a little example. And then the likely longevity, this is a big one, the likely longevity or sustainability of projects beyond the pilot program's grant activity period. So it's likely that the grant activity period, that means the time span where you need to spend the money on the project that you said you'd do. How likely is it to create such a sense of pride within your community as one thing, but also how likely is it that another community could then borrow it and use it in their community? And then, you know, the options for or existence of cross-county collaborations and mentoring. The list goes on. This is just things that came to us when we're considering how to apportion these funds in a really fair way. So, I mean, an example, for example, is Placer County is a very big county that's just south of Nevada, and it's the most southern county in our upstate region. And on the one hand, should mean that it gets quite a bit of the California Creative Corps money, right? On the other hand, it's almost entirely in the green areas. There's only 2 tracks, and possibly 3 tiny tracks that are very dark blue. So of course, that's why we'll focus on that for Plaza. So it's not easy to compare. And then how do we create the grants? Do we do a certain number that provide artist residencies, like a month-long artist residency, where an artist is given a live workspace with a social service organization or a gallery to do work that is particularly pertinent to an area that you've identified within the Healthy Places Index? Is it a larger scale residency lasting a whole year? Is it a collaboration of artists in a whole department or unit of government or social service organization? You tell us. So we want, some very discretionary high impacts, maybe going up to 100,000, and then a lot of smaller things as well. We want artists to feel empowered and perhaps see things that they feel they can show us have a likelihood of lasting. So this is where we say, okay, guys, over to you. What have we missed? Who isn't here at the table? I think we're small enough that we don't need to break up into groups, but maybe we should. What do you think? Do you want to divide up into 2 groups and talk about this, or we just pass around mics and have a conversation?
Pass it around.
Pass it.
Okay. So I think it would be really fun if we talk about the kinds of projects that what you must have been having thoughts like as I've been talking, thinking, come on, I'm just so inspired. I can think about this, you're writing notes, or you're like, have you considered some ideas? Because we love, as we go from community to community, sometimes people say to us, well, this is so big, it's like so huge. When we begin, give us some examples. I can give you one example. Do you want one example?
Yes.
Okay, so this is mainly in the visual arts. I don't want to get stuck here because visual arts is so accessible. So we, communities often will think about murals, gorgeous things that create a sense of place. In our case, we worked on a project called Forest Fire in the northern central Sierra Nevada, heavily forested with state and national forests. The forests, as you know, have been becoming increasingly unhealthy, largely due to the fact that, post-colonization, we've begun to manage our forests in an entirely different way from how they were managed, from thousands of years, dating back 13,000 years since the end of the last ice age. So we created a multi-partner project which saw us working with UC Berkeley, University of Nevada, Reno, working with people from the USDA, with Cal Fire, multiple projects, Community Foundation, and the state. And we created a $400,000 project over 3 years, culminating, and it had a big educational component. We went out into the schools and worked with school districts. We created a book, created an animated film, we entered it into film festivals, culminating in an exhibition of work by 20 artists across California that show the 13,000-year history and the relationship of tribal peoples to the management of the forests. What you can't see here is a sort of not quite a canopy, but you actually walk underneath a forest. And at the beginning, you have these wide diameter trees, which are the old growth forests that we have never known, essentially, that are spaced further apart. And then along comes, European settlers, cut off all the trees to build houses and mines, much of the wood goes underneath, because we're talking gold country, to hold up mines. And then the second growth comes in. So we're talking small diameter trees, a lot of brush close to the ground, tinder wood for catastrophic fire. And this exhibition has shone a light on the most extraordinary possibilities and included the most enormous amount of research. And in a way, I doubt that we'll be offering $400,000. We don't have that amount of money to offer an individual project. But what we might do is seed a project that has ambitions to go further and that is educating the community on the risk of catastrophic fire and what human beings can do to mitigate that, and its relationship to climate change, which is what this was. So that's just one example. It's a little bit of a large one. I'm sure that you have really great examples, so let's hear it.
We do have someone on Zoom that raised their hand.
Oh, great, let's have it, and then we'll come to you.
People can identify their name too, take notes.
Okay, Jonathan, you can go ahead and talk to us.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I was just gonna say I was really enjoying what you guys were saying about Surprise Valley, and I believe that they really have been a strong demonstration of what community looks like, especially over the past 2-3 years. And I love the local artist community. I think that that's something that should be studied and rolled out throughout different cities within Modoc County and perhaps outside of that. And I think maybe where it could be improved is just working with the local artist and seeing how we can elevate it, like taking it out from just like local street vendors and small stores and like putting into more of the local businesses, bring in more of our local art, bring into more of the websites, bring into more like tourism focus, showcasing what a healthy life looks like in the Modoc County, because obviously we are fairly healthy, but a lot of that's because we're outside a lot, and in the city you're not going to be outside quite as much. So anyways, just my high level thoughts.
Did everyone get it? Yeah, it was fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Allen. Jonathan, that was great. And then you had something you wanted to.
I have one. Let's not as one. Renee Welkin. This is like project ideas, like things that would pop in my head. Okay, so let me go this. I've had this like deep longing for understanding the Latino community here more. And I'm gonna go to Rubio's and I talked to Susan there and I'm like, I want to paint a mural in your restaurant and can we get some art down here? And now I have access to somebody who is fully bilingual to translate. So I'm thinking some kind of like community coalition that can put on some cultural events that are beyond the Fandango days, which is fabulous, but something that can pull in these other cultural groups here. I don't think that exists, but I know of. So that's my first thought. With art and all of that. Okay. I'll save my other for later.
Thank you so much. That was great. And now I'm gonna just.
And that's 13.5% of our tourists. I mean, that's where. So.
Yeah, I'm so glad you've literally picked up on something. Love it. So keep it brewing.
I won't be able to sleep.
So this, just hearing from Surprise Valley about the studio, and then the art center here, I was just thinking, what is something that we could link those studios spaces together that also involve public health and specifically youth mental health, which is a big concern, and I think a big tie into a lot of what we've already been discussing. So I was thinking, like, is there a project that could link those galleries, like a gallery tour that we could work with the schools, each of the school sites, and have art or music or something that is created and then showcased over the course of like 6 months or a year, that is just different stages of development or different aspects of mental health or something like that.
Love it, love it. I know you have something to say. Just you have something to say too.
Tag on to what Dan. I grew up in
Well, I raised my children in San Francisco, and we were very involved with arts. In fact, I went to an arts magnet school. And I find it missing here, the arts program, music and arts. I know we have music, we do have some sort, but I just feel it's a big piece that's missing. And somehow I'd like to get the school, as we said, more involved, so it becomes a healthier thing at a younger age. There's a lot of artists here that have sort of been transplanted here, but I don't see much art from the youth. So somehow we need to like to bridge that gap. And a perfect example might be an art auction where children fundraise for their own school or something like that. I just feel like there's a big missing piece that I think is important as far as the healthy part of growing up.
There's 7, like, born and raised here. I'm born and raised here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Born and raised here in the 70s, and our studio, we always had classes, there were a lot of classes. And like, they stopped for 80s and. Oh, sorry, excuse me, but it stopped. And then they didn't have the participation, it's slowly coming back, but for the kids, it's participation is not here for the classes. I still have some of the pottery, I think. And what was your name? And
If I just get you first.
My name is Larry. I have 2 thoughts, one constructive and one unconstructive. I'll start with unconstructive one. So one of the things I'm very much in favor of this in principle, and I understand the priorities of prioritizing the the underserved and all of that. But where I'm trying to sort of think this through is to help in that process without being kind of colonizing or whatever, like going in and saying, here's the answer to your community. We're healthy, you're not, here's some art, that I just, so I'm just want to be gentle about that and sort of think that through. But then I was just thinking when you were saying that we also have a place in Mendocino County, which is in this region. And there's an extremely wonderful local community youth performing arts center, both spaces, and they do amazing things with youth all around like issues like this. And I think your idea of bridging communities, somehow getting some of that energy up here. I don't know how to do that, but that's the only idea.
Thank you so much. So what I hear is less about like a symphony orchestra going in and performing and disappearing the next day, as much as that produces beauty and inspiration, but building capacity among communities. What is left behind when you're no longer there? How do we build capacity so that we're not in that sort of colonizing frame of mind? I love it. Anyone else? I love it.
There is a comment here, very brief comment.
Yes.
For Surprise Valley, he's saying that Surprise Valley's art and community is thriving, but in terms of the health community, they're struggling. And the hospital has been suffering for years, which is very concerning when you study the territory that it oversees.
Did everyone hear that? Yeah, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, if you could say your last name.
My name is Greg, and I love a mural. I've actually been thinking that would be really, and I think we have a lot of that already existing. But boy, if we could touch up some that are failing, and we could come up with some inspirational new ones. But the 2 other ideas that I was thinking, and I've been thinking about for a while, and I'm excited to see this movement with our jail population. that I've been serving for the last few years in working on finding ways for them to reintegrate into the community with the stigma that they carry with them. And some of them are very talented artists that have no skills with technology and they have no resources. And to be able to offer to them a service to present their artwork digitally somehow, so that when they are released, they have a portfolio already. And they have maybe even some connections. The other thing is, we don't have a pedestrian street fair area. And I think developing something like that and being able to host events where there's a children's section and they can sell their artwork, they can display it. Maybe we have very low cost booths that can be set up rather than expensive ones that discourage people from participating and really open it up to much more of a community kind of thing where maybe children can even sell lemonade in their section. And I can bring the 3 different kinds of artwork that I enjoy. And these can be either just for fun, for displays, or they could be for sale or whatever we want. But you know, right now, there's just not a lot of that. And when there are fun events, the community comes together. And that's a really good time. And I think in being able to expand on that would be really good.
That's great. Thank you so much. That's really helpful. Did you have something? Okay. This is just kind of coming to my brain from hearing all of you. So I didn't actually come here with those ideas, but it's just kind of blossoming from your discussions. But the idea of maybe a nonprofit for youth and youth led, similar to some of the other clubs, are type things that we have going on currently that could have multiple chapters, so to speak, or sections that would be community related, so under one umbrella, but giving opportunity for each of the smaller communities outside of Alturas have their own groups and develop ideas for structural art too. I think murals are amazing, but I know every time we drive to Eden and we drive by that motorcycle built of rubbish, my kids are super excited and they love it. I think that structural art could be something that could be specific for each community, not just so much in one city, but something that could rally each separate community and kind of be a unifying thing that could highlight maybe something specific about one that's maybe something that's specifically in the realm of some sort of cultural health or different types of things. So just opportunities where, again, each community can kind of rally together, but also be unified under the umbrella of creating something that would highlight the beauty of where we live. Nikki.
And when you said the part about the rubbish, I was just crazy. Was that the place with the huge silo that rusted outside of the huge restaurant?
No, it's just there's just it's created out of welded, I imagine. It's just the guy on a motorcycle that's built out of like just trash and things. I don't know if it's been elaborated on, but I know how wonderful all murals are that have lasted for years and years, and they're like a trademark, which is awesome. But I got to thinking, like, what can we do that wouldn't require something like a building space, but would give some more creative freedom for people that could create something structural that could be different for each community, that kind of thing. Love it. That's really great. And in some communities now, there's a big emergence of places that are called maker spaces. Do you have anything like that in Modoc? Yeah, the art center. So these are spaces where, you know, basically really geeky, fabulous, like DIYs, creative type people who don't dare call themselves artists, but who must be surely come together and are fabulously geeky together and come up with the most outrageous, beautiful ideas. And actually we passed that on the way. I remember it was a collection of about 4 different, like, couple of bikes And it was slightly spooky at the same time. It was really drew the eye. I loved it. So you're talking about going from 2D to 3D, essentially. Yeah, so many different ways of expressing visual arts.
Just wanted to ask, if this has been in the community here because you are so spread out. In some ways, it's there, yeah, it sounds like there's a maker space here that come out since it's so widespread. Could there be a mobile maker space that goes to the different communities and brings in, it's sort of like the ice cream truck coming to town and everyone knows, "Oh, we get welds and or do whatever, you know, gathers things." So if that would be something that would be useful to get to the areas that wouldn't be able to develop a maker space just because it's so spread out.
Love it.
I just want to follow up on what you said, I think, your name, Greg. It's my understanding, and I could be wrong, Alturas folks can correct me, but I think there is a relatively large proportion of the population is formerly incarcerated folks, in part because the cost of housing here is so low that when folks get out of prison anywhere in the state, this is a place they can come and live independently. And I think maybe the fact that we have such a relatively high proportion of formerly incarcerated residents contributes to some of those other data points, because felons can't vote, you know, and so on and so forth. And so I do think that thinking about services attending to that community, which is really kind of unique to us, where there's a lot of potential, but also a lot of challenges, would be a really great thing to do.
My name is Coulter, and also going about the pedestrian sort of fair, or that's a great idea, but in Surprise Valley, I forget who started it, but they do a first shield to first Friday, and people from Alturas often come, and it's just during the warmer seasons, but it's amazing. I mean, it's amazing to see the people interact with each other and what's going on, and vendors. There's artists who come out and bring their wares, you know, and I don't think there's a cost. But I thought, well, what if there was like second Fridays in Alturas? And it just keeps going. And people kind of can bounce from community.
Third Fridays in 80.
Yeah.
More than
Well, there's people who come from Bernie to our place.
I challenge all those in the room who might not have spoken yet. Is there anyone who has just a teensy idea or yeah, great.
Been talking about performing, creative performance. I have thought that it would be an amazing service, an amazing experience for our youth who are in concert band, the jazz band, middle school. To go on, I'm sorry, I'm gonna ask you just how to do, because I think I might have pressed that. One thing that I've been thinking about for a long time, my daughter is a musician. We just have an amazing piano program. We really do.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Roder has been a part of that too, and now Mr. Clark from high school. And I've just been thinking that why not have a performance for more people? You know, now that, you know, we don't have quite the restrictions of COVID that we did the last couple of years. You know, have concerts at some facilities regularly. How good that would be for morale for the you know, like you're saying, have certain times when we have performances. Weren't we doing that like 3 or 4 years ago, something like that, when I was.
Yeah, we put Modoc.
Yeah. Yes.
Did that start from one of the seniors doing that for their senior seminar thing?
Yes.
Did you mention her name? Marcy.
Brilliant. I can't help asking you, what is that really dark blue area into the west of Modoc? What do you think that's all about?
Well, I'm assuming that's truly like Newell, so I mean, that's the interesting thing, am I right? Yeah, you're that, okay, so I'm thinking. just based on my walks and drives through there, that has a large migrant population, I believe. So, and it's so very spread out and somewhat transitory, so I'm thinking that plays into that partly. Can I add an addendum in a minute? Really quickly?
Absolutely, no, I love it, I want to hear it is, I'm thinking, Michelle, later we might follow up. Because obviously here we are in Alturas, yet we have this great swathe of dark blue communities that are within the lowest quartile of the Healthy Places Index that simply aren't represented here tonight. And Alturas is this tiny little dark blue dot. Wouldn't it be great to see something going on between those, you know, between the two? What would that look like? And maybe what we can do is have a Zoom call and have it focused on that part of the Modoc and just see who we can get to the table in a virtual sense. We can have follow-ups.
California area, a whole different, like, a restaurant and where everyone, I work out there, but I'm surprised at how many people actually live in those places. There's a lot of houses that I didn't even know existed. There's probably a 1,000 people there and houses that I'm surprised.
Are they second homes? Obviously not.
They're overturned.
Yeah, amazing. So this is a mystery that I would love us to unravel together. Modoc. And there are changing environmental factors. We drove all the way along one side of Eagle Lake today, which is in Lassen, isn't it? Eagle Lake is in Lassen County. Yeah, so it's not in Modoc. Nevertheless, it was profound, the effect it had, because on the map it shows blue. It's not blue at all, it's completely dried up. Is there other areas like that?
We should go to Goose Lake.
So. Yes, please, come on.
I know. Somebody people know me. Okay, so addendum to what I stated before. The idea of, I'm not entirely sure what the colonizing thing means, but I think I do. But the idea to me would be how to get that community access to community events and social services through language and art. In ways poster, new campaigns that pull them in to things like, I think they probably put this in franchise firm because it's the majority community that's been here for 8,000 years. So that's, I think, where I was wanting to go with that. And can I add on to Greg really quickly? So Greg and I spoken before about ideas of a sober art space for people in rehabilitation, and we have never been able to make it happen because it was during COVID when we launched the concept in our brains. So I'm also feeling like what you said about the jail community, the people you work with, so that's, we need a space and thank you.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. This is so valuable. All your input is really valuable. I'm going to just challenge Mr. Baritone over here because I feel like you have something to say about music.
Yes. So my idea was that I've been thinking about for a while and tried to get going a couple times is they make these outdoor instruments that are just like simple xylophones. It'd be cool to have those in the school or in the park over here. Yeah. Or the refuge, and it would be like a one-time thing. And just, so the refuge is.
Like,
Yeah, it's out there. There's a bunch of fields and birds. And water, and you can drive around. Yes, wildlife. Well, we wouldn't want to do the music stuff out there, so it's scary.
Exactly, but when we talk about refuge, it could literally be anything, couldn't it? It could be connected to domestic violence or homelessness. It could be anything. So good to know. And wildlife in Modoc makes sense. Anyone else? Oh, great.
I want to add on this is comment about the red.
If you just.
Commenting on Chris and the refuge, out there there is a spot on the west side of the county road over there where we take kids for environmental education. It's a covered spot. And that might be a really good spot to have a music thing out there. It's a lovely view, it's in the trees. I mean, that's something that really could happen, I think. And the new refuge manager would probably be really agreeable to it. I see. I mean, it'd be fun, art and fun, you know?
Art in the park, I love it. So. Come on, I'm still trying to get those of you. We have a comment, okay, I'm not gonna forget you. Tell us about our comment, let's read it. Is it Jonathan?
Jonathan, yeah.
Who says the city of San Francisco has a mural that shows where their water comes from. It's educational to both kids and adults. Also, it creates awareness in protecting and taking care of our watersheds. Oh, I love it. Wouldn't that be great? So having a mural series or a mural program, but then connecting it to something that's critically important and relevant to your community.
Long lost things. We had a river center here for a little while, and it had the map of us. We were at the head of watershed, and it showed the whole water system in California. And we, it was an acting thing for environment and all of that, and it just sort of died for lack of funding, lack of volunteers. I mean, that seems to be what our problem is here, is the lack of volunteers. As well as funding, but there's something we could bring up again too.
Thank you, Bobby. That was great. It's worth waiting for. Okay, I'm coming over to you.
When I was in high school, I'm not sure if they've done it since then. They did a cultural play of the Modoc Wars that took place, I forget what it was called, Lost River. And that was really awesome. And I think something, even not even necessarily to get that going, but to maybe even do some local folklore related to Native American populations here and tell their stories and share that with the community that we don't ever get to hear. So.
Thank you so much. Are there any members of or people who are affiliated with local tribes here with us this evening? Yes.
I'm affiliated. What I'm working with the RISE, which is a resource for Indian education, and so we're RISE resource for Indian student education. Right. So we are actually developing a vaping cessation curriculum. And so I work with a program with them called Friday Night Live. And it's basically just awareness of substance abuse and healthy living and healthy lifestyles, promoting community building and relationships. And so we meet for that once in Surprise Valley and once in Alturas monthly. And then we also have a youth advocate board that is putting together the vaping curriculum. That's my affiliation.
Love it. That'll do. All right. Well, how are we doing for time? You want to speak? Oh, Randy. I'm going to turn this on you.
Yeah, so I think I want to double down on Craig's idea of street fair, just because, when it comes to art, there's a lot of creative people in this town, but they have no outlet to present their art. With the street fair, people can bring their necklaces that they make, or their photography, they can blow it up and get a frame, and they can potentially sell it, but also display it. And I think there's actually a lot of things in this town, such as pottery and stained glass making, I think it is, and several other classes that are available, but nobody knows about. So if there are booths and just stations that people can explain that there's all of these things here, I think that would be really useful for individuals or even businesses. Now, I think to add on to that, when I go to these street fairs, a lot of them have performances there from local bands or from schools. And so it's very much a community thing. And a lot of people come from a lot of different places to go to these things. And a lot of them are in small towns. And I would bet that people even from as far as Reno would come if we had something special to offer, such as really great Christmas lights along the main street. There are some towns that are in the middle of nowhere that get visited by thousands of people because they have amazing Christmas lights. And I hear the conversation every year that it'd be great if Main Street had a lot of different Christmas lights, even if it's just at the Elks Lodge or for October, some festivities, to really get into the community of it all and involve as many people as we want. So I just really wanted to know.
So much, like that's great. So I think we'll do one more. What did we say the time was?
7:30.
Wonderful. We're just about on time.
That's his thing, like they have a good things, but it happened for the artists first. Like the art center is kind of like that, but it's not defined like. Not any artists like have we. I looked into it, there's like 60 empty buildings in Alturas. There's more empty buildings than sealed buildings. So, I mean, and they donate the old Coast to Coast building is huge. We could have booths of all the artists and have like every month or every week a DIY for one of the artists and have people participate. And have is fun the buildings for so everybody can participate, not specific people. To be more
inclusive. That inclusivity and building capacity seem to be going hand in hand. Okay.
I feel very strongly about making one mistake. Okay, one thing that I saw on the screen but we didn't address was social justice. I don't, it was up there, wasn't it, as one of the categories? Okay, so my affiliation with a local tribe is my cousin was Yogi Agarwal, and he was murdered, and the man is still sitting in the jail here. That's beside the point. There was an attempt to have some kind of group who could support that situation. So in terms of social justice, I often have felt here squashed in wanting to bring up difficult topics and issues, whether it was related to race or the homeless and drug population. I hate to say it like that, home/less. Anyway, so the social justice element is another one. I would love anyone who wants to work on an idea for that.
In the 3 counties that we visited so far on our 19-leg journey across upstate California, a common theme we found so far is housing, habitability, housing for, affordable housing, essentially. The relationship of housing to transit. All these things are just juicy topics for artists to get their heads around. In Butte County, whole cities have arisen as a result of the Paradise Fire a few years ago. Artists are being sought to make those tiny pallet houses beautiful and habitable. So there are so many areas. I think in a way, all of it has to do with social justice, if we really think about it. But I want to thank you for coming this evening. We've actually created a website, upstatecreativecorps.org. That's the address. You don't need to write it down because we're going to send you this entire PowerPoint. We thought we'd do you a favor. Nevada County Arts Council, which we represent, is the administering organization. We're the ones that have been given the funds to create the program to give to all of you. It will be a competitive process. That's why we wanted to get ahead before any other region in California actually, and listen to communities and hear about what you want. So we will keep in touch. We'll keep in touch directly, and we'll keep in touch through Modoc County Arts Council, through Michelle, and we'll be in touch with you for the next couple of years. It's really exciting. We'll also, when we do come out with the guidelines and we do open for applications, it'll be around early spring, February, something like that. We'll also get together with you on Zoom. We'll do webinars to help you walk through the applications. We'll give you tips on filling out applications. We'll make it as easy as possible, but start thinking now and start convening as partners.
Just a question, thinking cross-county, when we're thinking about possible collaborations, are we thinking just in upstate, or can we work with counties in Southern California? Like,
I'm so interested by that. I'm really curious. My guess is that the grants that we hand out from the Creative Corps in Upstate must benefit communities in the Upstate region. However, something I have failed to mention is that there are 2 administering organizations that are serving the whole state. So if we're too little and parochial for you, find out these 2. I think, for example, Yellow One in San Francisco is one of them. I have a feeling that there's an organization in the southern part that's administering, discretionary grants across the state. It's a brilliant question. I'm going to find out some more and get back to you.
I totally imagine someone from each place, to each county, and show that you want to bring, each region wanted to do it. It could be great. I don't know how to put it on place.
There was a man here a few weeks ago who our last one from Monterey, who wanted to collaborate with us here. I have his number.
So exactly, and this is why it's so important. You've got to challenge us, because then it expands our horizons. And now I'm going to go back and do some homework and talk to California Arts Council and expand their horizons. And I'm going to, push the boundaries, see what's possible. But we'll get back to it. We'll keep in touch. You are not allowed to leave the Veterans Hall without stopping to eat some of the most delicious cookies known to mankind. They are over there. Thank you so much, Michelle. And there are some grapes and some cheese and some fresh coffee, and just hang around, please. Thank you to the Veterans Hall. Is there anyone who represents the Veterans Hall? Every time I go into events hall, I'm just incredibly grateful that we're at peace and I'm grateful to our veterans. So thank you everybody for joining us today.